X-Pac 12360. Featuring weekly news, insider commentary, and interviews with superstars, past and present from the world of pro wrestling.
A new day is dawning for DX.
And now, your host, Sean X-Pac Waltman.
Hey there, X-Pac 12360 fans. You've tuned into a brand new episode. We're coming at you from Westwood One. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll be breaking down the week's top pro wrestling news headlines. Not only that, but NWA World's Heavyweight Champion Nick Aldis will be joining us along with writer-director Dave Lagana. And the crew is all here. You know we're all going to come and hang out for that. Say hello to Jimbo. Hey, Jimbo.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
That's right. And right next to him, the lovely Denise Salcedo. How you doing, girl?
I'm good. Hey, everyone. And by the way, why aren't you Jimbo on the couch yet?
I don't know.
All right, we'll work on that. My name is Christy, but of course, the man of the hour, the one you have all tuned in for. You know him as X-Pac, Sean Waltman.
Hey there.
How
Thank
you
you,
doing?
everybody. I'm great. I had a great weekend. It was fantastic. I went to the Seattle Tacoma area and had a match with Defy.
Yeah, Defy
Yes,
Wrestling.
Defy Wrestling. Yeah. Sorry, I forgot the wrestling part. But it was fun. I want to thank Paul Lazenby. Do you know what I'm talking about? Paul Lazenby's the guy
The
that
bouncer.
wrote when we were bouncers books. And, you know, he's Stone Cold Steve Austin stunt double, does all kinds of stunt movie work, and was his MMA guy. He was like in the original like Pancrase, like back in the early days of MMA. And so he came down from Vancouver, and we went to this restaurant afterwards. Brody King came with us, and it's called 13 Coins, and it's right by Seattle Airport, and it's open 24 hours, but it's like a 5-star restaurant. Yeah, and it was so good. So effing good. This is the place that we would always go to after shows in Seattle, and Vince McMahon loves it. I mean, we would all go there. Like Vince, we would all have dinner afterwards sometimes. That used to be a thing, you know, like with some of us, if we were like, you could tell if Vince thought you were part of helping him draw money because you would be having dinner with him once in a while at like, Smith and Walensky Steakhouse in New York after the Garden Show or things like that. So
I hear they still bring Morton's to Staples when Brock is there.
Probably
For him and all the boys.
Yeah. That sounds about right. They do actually. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're probably in on that now
Yeah,
every
yeah,
time.
yeah,
I'm
for
very
sure.
sure.
Yeah.
Well, you also had a pretty strong move there during this Defy match, right? Do you want me to tell everybody how you knocked somebody out, or you want to tell us, Sean?
No.
I'm sorry, is that putting it too dramatically?
Yeah, big
Okay,
time.
sorry.
Yeah. No, one of the guys I was working with, the kick hit its mark, and he didn't put his hands up like I told him to. And so when I was waiting for him to, so I kick him, and then the other guy's in the corner waiting for the Bronco Buster. I go for the Bronco. I hit the Bronco Buster, and the people are, popping, and then you get up, and I'm waiting to get hit from behind. And I'm waiting, and it's a key part of the finish, and there's no one there. And I turn around, and the guy's still on the ground because I apparently, yeah.
Because he didn't put his hands up.
Yeah. So
This is you were tagging with a guy named Randy Myers. This was against Doc Cleaver, and Derek Drexel is the one who.
It was a fun match.
we'll
Those
remember
guys,
for next time.
yeah, there was some really good stuff on the undercard too. And Jacob Fatu, who goes as Samoan Werewolf.
Samoan Werewolf, yeah.
Yeah, just crushed it right before we went out. He was like before his match, and he was on right before us. Mm-hmm. He actually was talking about last week's show with Rikishi. That's his uncle, and he was talking about it was, he was mentioning how like we were talking about knowing your place on the card. And he was talking about going out and really maybe holding back a little bit. I'm like, no, go do your thing, man. I'll be good. So he went out there and crushed it. Just killed it.
He has a lot of support from a lot of the veterans.
Yeah. Good. He deserves it, I think. You know, I mean, I don't know him real well, but I mean, as far as what I see, how he handles himself in the dressing room and in the ring, yeah, he can be on my team any day of the week. So, anyways, so there was a new ring. Well, I guess it was a new ring for them, and I was looking at it, and I'm like, they need. It was before the show. I'm like, they need to tighten up the underneath of the ring because the poles are bent inwards, and you know, I'm like, hey man, when you guys gonna tighten that up underneath? Like that's about as tight as it gets, and I'm like, that's gonna break. And like, yeah, no, it'll be all right. And I'm like, no, it's gonna break. First match. Yeah, it broke. So they had to take a little intermission to fix the ring, and then there was no regular intermission that night. And but anyways, great show. One of the hottest crowds I've seen in a long time.
A lot of people, or just a small number of enthusiastic people?
Good. It was full. You know, there's like 500 people, and it held about 500. And that was the first time they ran the venue. And they usually run 21 and older shows, and this wasn't like one of their only all ages shows. And it did well. And like I said, a lot of people, and the crowd was really, really hot. Like they come to have a good time. The people give them a good show, and in return, they show their appreciation, and that's how it should work. You know, like it really sucks when you go out there and you're just giving everything you have, and the people are, you know, for whatever reason, I don't know. Some people, they don't want to look uncool for participating and being wrestling a spectator, but we kind of need that, you know.
And then doesn't that make it harder for, let's say, a guy who's sort of just getting his foot in there and doesn't really know how to work the crowd? And, you know, he needs the crowd to kind of, like, gauge everybody.
We all do.
You know? Yeah.
We all do. We all need that. I mean, we could do it without, but, man, it's a lot better when we have that. And, I mean, and I'm not telling the crowd to go out there and just give it away for nothing. Like, if it sucks, don't give it out. Keep it. But give it out when they deserve it, you know. So, all right.
There's no worse feeling than crickets out there. All right. Well, Sean, can we move on to some pro wrestling news?
Yeah, of course.
Let's do it. It's the X-Pac 12360 news of the week.
X-Pac 12360 Wrestling News.
All right, starting with an update from last week, I think you guys will all find very interesting. As Harry Francis Smith, who we all know as Davey Boy Smith Jr., or Davey Boy Jr., has announced that all charges against him following his altercation with Jake Roberts at WrestleCon, all the charges will be dropped. This is coming from Jake Roberts himself. So Davey spoke with Jake on the phone, and they have completely made amends. He said he apologized. He also told Jake that he would apologize publicly, and Jake in turn said he would drop any charges. Davey says he wishes Jake all the best, and he's really glad that they squashed this beef. Davey said that he and Roddy actually had a conversation about the podcast in question before Roddy had passed away, and he was happy about that. So he's glad now that this is all just put to bed, no more grudges, this is done.
Yes, and I'm really happy personally, just because I was there. I was at WrestleCon. Jimbo, you were there. We weren't.
We were on the other side, but yeah.
Yes, and so I heard what happened, and actually, you know, someone reached out and told me what happened. But I was on my way to WrestleCon, and anyways, that's neither here nor there. Always sucks to me personally when I see people in the industry going at it, you know, over anything. And, you know, I know like there's sometimes it happens and that, but man, it's always really sad. And so I'm really happy. And I knew like, okay, this is a situation where, you know, all this happened in public, and so egos get bruised. You know, pride. You know, people's pride is an issue, and you know, so I get it. I understand why Jake, you know, was upset, and you know, his daughter was there, and all that, and I've talked about this already. You know, Harry reached out to me, and I kind of helped facilitate this through Dallas Page.
Oh.
Yeah. So, that being said, really happy it's squashed now, and move on.
All right. Good mediating, Sean.
Not really. I just kind of put people. I connected some people.
Put them together?
Yeah.
That's
all.
cool. Well, more good news. NXT has signed independent talent Martin Stone, who has performed for NXT under the name Danny Burch. You guys know him from having quite a spirited rivalry, actually, with Oni Lorcan, and now teaming up with Oni. He had been signed to developmental, but was released in 2014. You know, of course, that he did compete in the WWE United Kingdom Championship tournament, and then started working NXT tapings again in 2015. He was offered this new contract last month, but we're just finding out about this now because over the weekend he gave a farewell speech at Beyond Wrestling in New England. So congratulations to Danny. I had the pleasure of working with him many times when I was at NXT. He is a great talent, a great guy, and it was absolutely time to bring him on as a full-time superstar.
Yeah, happy for him. Yeah, I've been on shows with him in England, and seen him over here. Yeah, good for him. Did he drop some weight?
Since this photo,
yeah, right. Because
yes.
that photo I'm looking at on the screen there, he's
billed at 190 now, I believe. Him and Oni
it's
both.
Better look for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that might have something to do with why they let him go for a minute. I don't know.
Absolutely could be.
I'm not sure because I can't think of any other reason.
Right.
I feel like we might be seeing a surge more British guys because in May, World of Sport has been picked up by ITV in the UK. So I think that because of that, I think WWE is going to probably want some more first dibs on some of the British guys. So maybe bringing some more that were more of the part-time UK guys. They might bring them on full-time. And I feel like Danny Burch is kind of just like the I guess you
At
can
the
say
forefront.
at the forefront of seeing more guys coming in, which is going to be cool because, first of all, his style, he's a very solid worker. He has a unique style, like a ruggedness to him that I think is going to be fun to see. And if they keep bringing in more guys, like that's just going to add more. It's just going to be better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This could possibly be a precursor to the WWE United Kingdom weekly show that we hear is still reportedly in development and has been since the tournament last year.
And, this is kind of a little bit of a different subject, but I read something on, it might have been a Triple H conference call, and he was talking about, international, localized expansion. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yes, yeah.
So you're not just going and running shows, but you're actually going into these international markets and establishing a foothold there and bring almost like starting a local territory.
Right, and they are working closely with Progress in the UK.
Yeah, so, good.
Good. All right. I like that one. Well, let's cover something that everybody is still talking about. WWE's Greatest Royal Rumble made waves when it finally came to air, a live show on the WWE Network last Friday, and several fallouts from this. First of all, being that during a short prayer break, there was a video shown that depicted some of the female superstars in their gear, which reportedly there had been an agreement that there would be no women seen anywhere during the show. And so the General Sport Authority of Saudi Arabia is apologizing to its people for that moment of what they're calling indecency, where the women, Sasha Banks and Carmella, were shown in their gear on the screen. I'm wondering if that will affect their reported return, WWE's return to Saudi Arabia in November.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say absolutely not.
You don't think so?
Nope. Hey, oops, something slipped through the cracks. What are you going to do?
Right.
Hey, it was a long show. There was a lot that had to go into the production, and hey, sometimes things happen. Whatever. Sorry.
Well, and despite the women
I'm just kind of making light of it. But,
right. Right. Well, despite them not being
seen,
Jerry Lawler spoke about this on his podcast, and he presumed that the women were probably getting a payout still, even though they didn't perform at the show.
That may or may not be true.
Careful,
They
Sean.
should.
He also apparently went on to talk about the Greatest Royal Rumble for 30 minutes on his show, which had to be cut out inexplicably. So
I wonder why. I'm not good. Well, whatever. There was some. I liked the show, to be honest with you. I enjoyed it. Obviously it was a different feel to it. You know. It felt like you were watching a show that was like really far away. I don't know if that makes any sense to you.
yeah.
Like sometimes you're watching and, just you could tell like some of the camera shot, like, the shot of outside, like from above the
With the
stadium.
fireworks.
To show the fireworks.
Yeah, like that made, okay, yeah. I could tell we're somewhere different here. And man, I don't know if the way I just said that is even
Not pieces together.
makes any sense, but some people were wondering why they put Triple H and John Cena on first. Makes perfect sense to me, and people that know a little bit about how WWE does things. That's
What would be the reasoning for that?
you start to show off hot, and that did it. They got a hell of a reaction. I like the finish. I mean, I thought it was good to put John over. Anyways, what else was good?
What'd you think of the Undertaker casket match?
It was fine. It was fine. And some, one of the criticisms I read was, there were no title changes. It was basically a glorified house show. So what? So what?
Be
Yeah.
happy that you got to watch it.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that, obviously not every match was like, oh my God, this was the greatest thing ever. But I feel like, so starting at the top of the show, when this all started, I don't know why, but I didn't expect the venue to look this nice. I don't know why, I just didn't know that. But when they showed the venue, I was just like, man, I am feeling some serious FOMO. And when you said I feel so far away, I felt the exact same way. I was like, man, I wish I would have saved my money and gone to Saudi Arabia and watched this instead of WrestleMania. But that's just how grand the scale was. And so I think with having Triple H and John Cena start the match up, start off the show, got everyone so hyped. And what I specifically liked about this was that the whole controversy with the women, but the thing is that they showed a lot of emphasis on the children, particularly during this match. With John Cena coming out with
kids in the crowd?
Yes, and then they had a shot of Triple H engaging with a little girl and a little boy. I thought that was awesome. From the start that they had that was really cool, and it kind of, I guess you can say it gave way to what we kind of saw the rest of the show, where we saw a lot of children that were really into what they were seeing, and I think that's where they hit the A+ sign on this.
Did anyone did you guys, sorry. Did anyone notice what the people were reacting to and what they weren't? A little bit different than maybe your average crowd here, right?
Yeah.
Like some of the stuff that, some of the really cool things that a lot of hip with it wrestling bands wasn't really getting over there. Some of the intricate, cruiserweight stuff. People were like,
It seemed
whatever.
like the test of strength in the Cena Triple H match
Yes.
was the hugest thing that
Yes.
fans were so involved in, and
It's because, and I'll tell you why, because it's a virgin crowd. They're fresh. They have not been exposed. Their live audience has not been exposed to that. So you go out there, and even though they've seen all this cool shit on TV, still live they haven't. So you don't go out there and just start doing everything. You go out there, you grab, you could grab a headlock and have somebody work up into a top wrist lock, and the people will go crazy.
And Sean, can I add a little bit?
Yeah, please do.
Hi, Mark in the booth here.
Sorry again, Mark.
No, that's quite all right. It's quite all right. We had pointed out when we were talking about WrestleMania weekend that during some of the shows there was just sort of this bass quiet.
Yes.
Whereas I noticed much more during the Greatest Royal Rumble, there was always some sort of a roar.
That's right.
Some sort of a reaction from the crowd. They were paying attention the entire time. And I thought that I really enjoyed the show as well. And like you said, this is a virgin crowd. They've never seen this before. So what do? You give them the greatest stuff that they've been watching on TV for the past however long. You give them a couple of Titans in the ring. You give them a Royal Rumble. All the championships are on the line.
That's right.
I thought this was a knockout show for them. And I I enjoyed it so much I watched it twice.
Oh, good.
Really?
Yeah.
Good.
Really, it was.
I
a
understand
great
where you're
time.
coming from on that, Mark.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's true. Like when you first go and you bring the show to Saudi Arabia, and this the same went when we would go to Japan. They want to see what they see on TV.
Yep.
And that's what you give them, and especially like you make sure they get like the basic version of that, like, and not try to complicate it too much.
So with this less is more mentality, do you think it was good to put the cruiserweights on right after Cena and Triple H and have that be the next match?
Maybe in hindsight, not really, but I don't know. I'm not sure.
One of the cool things too, if you guys noticed, were I was surprised when they started the "This is awesome" chants, because I guess I didn't expect it coming from them. But I noticed that they did some American chants. They had the delete. They had certain chants throughout the day. But what I thought was interesting was that here, when we do the chants, they last a little while. Over there, they lasted like maybe 3 rounds, and that was pretty
that's
interesting
fine.
to see the dynamics of how the crowd works and what they know and what they don't know, which was pretty cool to see.
Something I noticed that got a huge reaction, maybe the biggest of the show, was the Dafari Brothers segment. And it made me really upset that instead of spreading this out throughout the show and having maybe like them come out in the beginning and tease it and set up a match later on, that they put it all in one segment when all of those guys could have got reactions with other wrestlers and elevated them. Like if Dafari and his brother would have came out in the beginning and teased a promo and then send out a tag team that they're going to wrestle, or maybe now they have 2 singles matches based off this, and now crowds are invested in them because their culture, and now an American wrestler going against them, now they have someone to pull
Dude,
for.
they don't have any experience at Jimbo. You can't they put everyone.
The Saudi guys.
Yeah, the Saudi guy. I mean, that one guy, Mansoor. How do you
No,
pronounce
I'm
it?
not talking about putting them against the
Mansoor.
Saudi guys that were training. I'm talking about Dafari and them coming out, getting the reaction, and then send out someone from the back that they want to see. Like
using
was,
them.
like
but
Aiden
it was
English
for
or
those
whatever.
guys. It was strictly for their local guys to shine those guys. Do you understand the politics behind why they even did that?
Because they want people to invest
No,
in
but
the
gee,
local
they
guys.
come out with the Iranian flag.
Oh,
Huge heat
heat.
between Saudi Arabia
Yeah.
and Iran.
Yeah.
So they couldn't even show any of that.
Oh, really?
No,
Okay.
no. It was so kind of like what you would think of back in the 80s, like
Like the Desert Storm thing?
all that stuff. Yeah, it was very much that. It was yes.
Okay.
It was like, okay, mindless patriot, like, okay, we're going to cheer for, we're going to get behind the Saudi guys versus our sworn enemies type of thing.
I guess
And the guys were very like, the guys. There were 3 guys in there that won, right? That won the competition. 4. Sorry. Okay. And they want to get all that done and then get on with they're not going to spend all that time on all that stuff. It's just not going to happen. And they put it all in one segment, and the one guy, man, he's money. The one guy with the long hair that was
Totally agree.
Yeah, he might not look as money as the other 3 guys, but he's way more money than those other guys. Big time. Mansoor, I think that's some with an M, started with an M. Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, I get what you're saying, Jimbo, but yeah, it's getting kind of
why spread it out when you can
Yeah,
have it
no,
all
yeah.
invested in one spot?
Yeah.
Okay. It makes sense.
Well, there was a lot of moments. There was the ladder match, if you guys want to talk about that.
I didn't even see it.
Yeah,
I'm
there
not gonna lie.
was the ladder match. There was Brock Roman. There's a
Yeah.
lot of good stuff.
Brock Roman stuff, some people were complaining about that. I thought it was just fine. I don't know what they were expecting out of that. I don't. I mean, except for maybe a title change.
Right. I think people were expecting a title change.
Yeah, but oops, sorry.
Right.
Sorry we didn't give you exactly what you thought you were getting.
You got some NXT guys that you've never seen before. I know people always love that. Dan Matha, Tucker Knight from Heavy Machinery, and Baba Tunde.
Yeah. And that big sumo guy. What the F was that?
Yeah.
And he's a real sumo. I think
He's
they
a
had
very
they had
successful
just, they
sumo
had,
wrestler.
He had just retired or something like that.
Really?
Yeah, because apparently if you're a sumo wrestler and you can't show up in pro wrestling unless you're retired.
That's correct.
So
Yeah.
It's like the Olympics.
Yeah.
Gotta be anyway. All
No,
right,
not anymore. Olympics hasn't been that way in years.
They can be professionals in the
Yes.
Olympics? Oh.
No,
I should try out.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to add about the greatest Royal Rumble, Sean?
No,
Were there any highlights from the Royal Rumble match itself?
not really.
Solid battle royal fare.
Not even that solid. Because, like, and somebody brought this up to me, maybe Jimbo.
Yeah.
You know, when guys make their entrances, they get in there and there's nobody, like, waiting to, like, feed them a little bit. It kills it. Sorry. You got to do that. I mean, you don't have to, but you have to if you want it to be a good Rumble match, for Christ's sakes.
You think there were so many guys that they just said, no, just get in there and do something?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yes, maybe. Yeah, but, I mean, they could have done a little something more. I know that for a fact, so.
All right, well, let's top this off with a feel-good story. There it is. We're going to talk a little bit more about Cauliflower Alley Club in a little bit, but I want to tell you guys a little bit about them. You know that Sean will be at their Hall of Fame ceremony this Wednesday.
You're kidding me.
Yes.
I did not know that.
Are you? I'll get you booked. Listen, I think Kevin Undergaro wants to come. Just saying. So let's let everybody know a little bit about Cauliflower Alley. They help wrestlers in need. They've helped more than 1,000 current and former wrestlers, executives, and fans, most recently giving to a guy named Brickhouse Brown, who was suffering from stage 4 cancer. He couldn't afford to get the surgery that he needed. Well, the president and CEO of Cauliflower Alley Club, Brian Blair, he got in there. He himself is a former AWA star from the 80s.
He's a Florida star. He's a WWE
One of the
star.
Killer
Is
Bees,
the
right?
Killer Bees. Brian's been around since, oh my God. Anyways, Brian's a great guy. And he was former Hillsborough County Commissioner as well.
Yeah, clearly a great guy. He paid for Brickhouse Brown's second opinion, chemotherapy, new medications, everything that he needed. Brickhouse Brown now says he feels like $1 million.
Awesome.
And you guys can go to caulifloweralleyclub.org if you want to give, learn more about them, or, more info about this event coming up on Wednesday.
And Brickhouse was he was a great guy, and he was around since I very first started watching wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great body, fantastic physique. He was in a tag team in the late 80s called the Blackbirds with Iceman King Parsons. Outside of WWE, kind of got some traction. Mm-hmm. Anyways, yeah, he was also in this tag team and when breakdancing became a thing in the early 80s and hip hop music was starting to, get big. When breakdancing became a thing, and you know how in wrestling, if something becomes big, they're going to try to jump on that. But it was just the worst version of trying to capitalize on the breakdancing phenomenon. They had Brickhouse Brown and this other wrestler named Johnny Konduri, another black guy. And so they're two black guys, so let's put them together and they could be the breakdancers, right? Neither one of them could breakdance worth a shit. It was so embarrassing as somebody that was a fan of breakdancing. But it was so typical of wrestling looking back on that, especially Southern wrestling. But anyways,
well, perhaps
I love Brickhouse Brown, and I'm so happy that Cauliflower Alley was able to help. And probably as you're listening to this, right. I will be in Las Vegas, and Kevin Undergaro is coming with me. And Scott Hall and Kevin Nash will be there with me, and we're going to present Shawn Michaels with the Luthez Award.
Huge deal.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I've never been to the Cauliflower Alley club reunion, and I've been asked, like the old president, his name was Carl Lauer. He used to occasionally bug me about it. Always
been
meant to.
Since 65.
Oh yeah. There was a guy his name was Iron Mike Mazurki, and he was one of the first wrestling guys that I saw, looking back, crossover into movies and that. Anyways, Cauliflower Club's great, and I'm looking forward to going there today, I guess.
Yeah.
For everyone that's listening on Wednesday.
And we're looking forward to hearing all about it next week.
Yeah. So, okay.
But first, first, we got way more of today's show coming at you. We will be back in just a moment with NWA World Heavyweight Champion Nick Aldis and writer-director Dave Lagana. Stay tuned.
Hey, X-Pac 12360 fans. I just wanted to tell you 2 ways that you can support the show to help it grow. First, if you've ever wanted to shout out a surprise message for various occasions from me, all you have to do is visit celebvm.com/Sean Waltman to request a video today. Not only does it support the show, but a portion of the proceeds go to charity. Second, visit prowrestlingtees.com/Sean Waltman. That's the only place to grab shirts with the X-Pac 12360 logo, Wolfpack, or many other designs. If you pick up a shirt, make sure to tweet us using the hashtag X-Pac12360. That's celebvm.com/Sean Waltman for a personal message from me, X-Pac. And prowrestlingtees.com/Sean Waltman for X-Pac, Wolfpack, and X-Pac 12360 gear. Thanks for supporting the show. Now let's get back to it.
Welcome back to X-Pac 12360. 2 guests joining us now. One is a writer-director for over 20 years who's worked on an array of projects, including the sitcom Friends and documentaries. Oh, and he's also written over 1,000 hours of professional wrestling, including WWE, TNA, and Ring of Honor. Our other guest today was a teenage bodybuilder. When he began training for pro wrestling at age 16, he's held singles titles and tag team titles around the world with heavyweight partners like Samoa Joe. You'll remember him as Magnus, defeating AJ Styles for the TNA World Championship. He ended AJ Styles and Sting's careers over there at TNA. He competed in the United Kingdom reboot of Gladiators and is a father of 1 and husband to WWE superstar Mickie James. Please welcome to the show, Dave Lagana and NWA World Heavyweight Champion Nick Aldis.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How about that intro?
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
You're going to go everywhere with us and do that.
Thank you. There's more where that came from.
Delightful.
Nice. Hey, thank you guys.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Hey, so I got a message from you, Dave, the other day, saying you guys could stop in, and so I rearranged the schedule a little bit, and you guys are here, and I'm so happy to have you.
Yeah. We Nick wrestled yesterday, and we're going to Vegas for Cauliflower Alley.
So yesterday would be Sunday. So okay, full
Sorry.
disclosure, today is Monday. Today is Monday, and we're taping the show, out of sequence because, and you guys will be there too. Wednesday we'll all be at the Cauliflower Alley Club.
Right.
First time for me.
Yes.
And me.
And me as well.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it, and that. But yesterday, Sunday, you guys had you defended the title, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood versus PJ Black.
Well, didn't defend the title. It
Oh,
was
you didn't?
It was a segment where I issued an open challenge.
Yeah.
To, if anyone could last 5 minutes, then they get a title shot. I went through a couple of guys, and then I decided to let's have a third one, and then it was PJ as a surprise, and he took it to me a little bit, as you can see.
Did he slip one over on you, the non-title match?
No.
Okay.
It was,
Obviously, you're still the champion.
No, but I'm saying,
Yeah.
I was wondering if you guys were trying to build up for a rematch.
He's that's up to Billy and Dave, but I mean, obviously he got his licks in.
How'd it go? How'd the match go?
Great.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of PJ.
Yeah. Okay. So, were there any issues with, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood's ring is pretty tiny?
Yeah, I know they are talking about getting a bigger
Yeah.
one. Right? Like that's I can't wait for that because I really like going there. Like
Yeah.
I actually like working there, but the ring it's an issue for me because I think like I never considered myself a big guy, right? Like if I'd come around in your era, I'd be average sized, you know. But now it's everywhere I go, it's people kind of like hey, well, you don't have to sell that if you don't want to, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like I don't work like that.
Right.
But when you're in those smaller rings, sometimes it negates your. If you're bigger, it's like hard to explain to people because then and then you see like, oh well, it's it was kind of sloppy or it was kind of slow, and it's like because I have to do everything corner to corner in a ring like that.
Right.
It's not the same as being able to just like if I go full tilt at something, I'm gonna end up in the ropes every time, and that's it looks crap. Like so you have to modify your style a bit, and that's the thing that people don't really understand. And I'm used to it because coming up in England, it was like all the rings were small, but that's why we all had good footwork.
Yeah.
But the style is different. If you're going to do a high octane, high paced, style, like you can't stop every 2 minutes and sort of adjust. And it's not the same. Like British style, as is much more you know, it's more intricate. So
Yeah.
you need the bigger ring for sure.
Right on.
Yeah.
So it was a good appetizer for what we want to do with them. So
Yeah. So we were. I think everyone watched the latest 10 Pounds of Gold.
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah.
I love the whole series.
It's amazing.
How has
really
it
is.
been doing this series? Have you got to meet former NWA champions? What do they think about it?
it's been interesting. I think what we'll find at Cauliflower is sort of the reaction, but I wanted to do this series all the way back to when Adam Pearce was the NWA champion, and I had pitched it to him back then. And again, technology was far different then, so it's just been an exploratory thing, and everybody's just the fact that we're respecting the history. And when Billy bought it, it was like we had two things we wanted to protect: the Shield and obviously the title. And so that's what we're doing every week with the show. So
And so when you guys, when everything first started coming together, and you and Billy came together, and it was before any of the 10 Pounds of Gold.
yeah, we've been basically
made.
business partners all the way back to the TNA stuff.
Oh,
So
okay.
when he started his investment, I was there to sort of help his interest inside there, and it turned into a real bad situation, and we both got out, and we're very happy with it. And there was about a 6-week period where we didn't know what we were going to do, and then the opportunity with the NWA came around, I think February of last year, and that took 6 months to get settled out. And once we started working, we've been going. So
Dave, what's been the most for you, most satisfying thing to be able to bring out these stories? And not only that, like, for example, you're working so closely with Nick, you're working so closely with Tim Storms to bring their story, and you humanize Tim Storms so well with the whole teacher aspect and all of that stuff. How has that been working with everybody and kind of bringing that out?
for me, it's been because obviously I've done a lot, and obviously I worked with Sean in 2002. I took everything that we all didn't like about experiences otherwhere and tried to work with talent. We talked about this today. It's like, what motivates talent to want to be a part of something new and completely a startup, like finding what works, and it's their real stories. Because I was a writer, Sean, you're going to say this, and you're like, no, I don't want to say that.
Yeah,
and
that sucks.
Yeah, so we've had that conversation multiple times, and so for me to be able to reinvent what we're doing, I want to go the complete opposite way. Like, I have a degree in television. I went to college with Maria, and I have a degree in television production, which I didn't use.
Maria Menounos.
Yeah. I was telling Sean, when I was a senior, she was a freshman, and I used to direct her on the newscast. I never did that after I left college. So for me, this is going back to my roots. And I like being able to tell stories in a completely different way.
So before the first 10 pounds of gold, did you already have it figured out how you wanted it all to be? Or is it kind of just a work in progress and it just kind of started coming together as you went?
I tell him and Billy, when I start a new episode, I was like, I have nothing. And then I start to dig through stuff and find sound bites. And that's the exciting part, because instead of having a full vision before, we have things that work. I may take 2 sound bites from this, or I might use the whole thing. I never know until we get there. And that's the complete opposite of how wrestling's done. Everybody plans everything out, and we're trying to find stories as they go. So,
and just it's such a different way of doing it. You know, you're taking Nick on the road and traveling to all these different promotions instead of, starting your own brick and mortar, promotion. And I just think it's brilliant. And I don't think anyone really thought of doing it that way.
that's the way the world is. I mean, again, I worked on this channel back in 2011 before TNA, and they were way ahead of the curve on a lot of stuff. The establishment's breaking down. There will always be a WWE, but the opportunity to create for yourself it's there.
It's a lot more decentralized, huh?
The fact that you could have a talk show, and think about 10 years ago, this wouldn't have been possible, and now you can do it weekly, daily, every minute if you want. So that's why we saw this opportunity and why we're doing it this way instead of, we talked about today, running a show weekly, because that's what you do with a wrestling promotion. I don't know why you have to do it that way.
The pressure of that is just astronomical. People have no idea about the cost involved in something like that. And it's just, okay, we talked about that earlier, where we don't, I don't know what the dollar amount is, but whatever the dollar amount is that's been spent so far on everything, including the purchase of the brand and everything, that would have got us maybe three shows, three good shows. Then what? And then all you've done now is you've set up a situation up where everyone's like, okay, what's next? Yeah. Because it's still not going to be competitive with WWE's production value and talent-wise or anything else. Can't get guys under contract. Can't get anything that's going to make you stand out versus anyone else. So then it's like, okay, now what? And now you've set a precedent. Now you've got to follow up with that, and that's, I believe, is part of the reason why Impact ran into so many problems, because they went, we're doing well. Let's get this and this and this and this and this, and then everyone went, okay, well, now you have to keep doing that, and you've screwed yourself.
It's the perception versus reality. Well, we can't create that perception, so we're going completely real. But this is it. You know what I mean? It's like, well, you don't have a promotion. Yes, we don't. I have a champion, but this is what the brand was. And if you ask somebody what was the NWA in 1970, they would say Jack Briscoe, Harley Race. They wouldn't say, oh, it was a bunch of
Dory Funk Jr.
Yeah, it wasn't a bunch of promoters. Like, name 3 promoters, nobody could. They could name the champions.
There also wasn't an NWA Monday Night TV.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't have an NWA branded television show. It was a governing body.
Yeah.
You know.
So that's what we started with, and we'll scale it from that. Or if it's only this forever, then it's this. But we're happy with it, and that's the point.
So the thing that I'm noticing though is you're going around to different promotions, and they're not all necessarily part of the NWA.
Nobody is.
Gotcha. Okay.
When we bought the company, I talked to every one of the promoters, and it was Carneyland Central, and it was, I mean, we had 3 guys try and hold us up with the belts, and like they all wanted spots.
And they all had this antiquated mentality on how the business should work.
Yes.
Just playing dress up.
Yeah, and we were very clear, and I said, no, we're not going to do it this way. But if you'd like to have an at bat, if you play ball now, I'll guarantee you. They all wanted the
Which,
payoff.
by the way, Tim Storm did.
Yes, Tim did. Tim is a quality human being, and
100%.
Tim was offered 5 figures to drop the title to somebody else against our wishes by a promoter. And I called Tim when I found out. He goes, "Can I get that money from you?" I'm like, "No, Tim." I said, but like he was joking, if you know Tim, and it was just right. And I had such respect for him, and he told me his story, and I'm like, I called Billy. I said, "This is what we should do." That he is a quality human being, and nobody knew who he was, so let's go with it. And it was so great, and that's how we got this. Because I can't say this is what we wanted to do. I knew we wanted to do some version of this, but every day we find something new. Like, he's not a character. It's mostly him. You know what I mean? It's not like I think you should say this today. It's more like, all right, I like what you said here. Let's go in that direction.
Hey, can you talk about any of the difficulties you've had when trying to do it this way with cooperation between, with the different promotions?
We're very clear from the start. Like, so anytime we set up a situation, we'd like to do this, this, and this. If you agree, great. What are you looking to get out of it? And everybody's been very happy. We've had no situation with anybody going, oh, I feel like you took advantage of us, because they're getting exposure, and we're providing them a completely different way to promote their brand, as in vice versa. And it's all handshake agreements. It's, again, the opposite of the old way of like, well, I'm a promoter, I have the rights to. No, it's like we want to do what's good for the brand, not just what people want to do for it.
And it's not just little random little promotions here and there that are taking advantage of this. I've seen recently House of Hardcore with Tommy Dreamer.
Yep.
Yeah.
How did that go, Nick?
Well, I was actually, I'd been working with Tommy, prior to actually both of those guys, Billy and Dave contacted me last summer.
Yeah.
And it was around the same time that Tommy had kind of contacted me the same way and said, I see you as my top heel, and like I want to sort of, build a whole sort of set of storylines around you at House of Hardcore. So I said, great, So I think this in the business, people go through, like when I did this show before, it wasn't a great point for me,
right?
Like, and it was a point where I was kind of on the fence about where what was next, and people sense that, but they can also sense when, if you're going to dig yourself out of that, then they start to get that, and that energy comes back, and I felt like I was in a good place, and I had that good energy, like and people get that, and they sense that, and they feel that. So then subsequently, when I had this conversation with Dave and Billy, it was like immediately I had a good feeling about it. I didn't really know what it was yet, but I had a very good feeling about that, and felt like my presentation as a talent and my aspirations outside of wrestling, as a human being, fit very well with that ethos. Yeah. And then, Tommy, I didn't necessarily see myself as that guy, but I also realized that that's a perfect reason to be there, because it is the antithesis of that, So in that respect, they sort of worked at the same time. And then, Tommy gets it. So it was like, he saw all this stuff happening, and then we just went, well, let's just merge these two together, and it worked out great. And Tommy, he understands that the thing that to me, that separates us from it is this. This is the asset.
Yes.
Because we were able, just from having that bit of Houston footage, to reinforce that over and over again, like how much history is behind the title. And suddenly you've got a situation where it's like, hey, that's the, Harley Race, Jack Briscoe, Dusty Rhodes, Dory Funk Jr., Ric Flair, and suddenly it's like, and the, the 30 for 30 thing on Rick was such a blessing for us timing-wise, because, suddenly you had all these guys, not just wrestling guys, but ESPN guys, and all these going like, yeah, the NWA was my jam, You know, like I wasn't a WWF guy as much.
Yeah.
Suddenly people are going like, oh yeah, you know, and we just felt like it was just one of those things where everything lined up, and that happens sometimes. You gotta ride that wave, you know.
Absolutely. Hey, have you noticed? And this is something I noticed. This belt means a lot more than it used to. You know, like say 10 years ago. And I know, okay, the whole industry, you know, wrestling's hot again. And I just think the history of the sport, the industry, however you want to put it, is a lot more important now to everyone watching.
Well, I think with the advent of YouTube and the WWE Network, and you know, it's only, I think it's like 51 guys have held this title. Like there was a year in WCW that many guys held that title. You know what I mean? So like I looked it up the other day. It's an amazing list. It's a who's who of pro wrestling. And it's the opposite of WWE. And again, it's always good to have an American League and a National League. Like, so for this to exist and still exist, and 10 years ago, the internet was such an infancy of that thing that you couldn't really look stuff up. Like, if you wanted to look up Dusty Rhodes in 1986 and 2003, you couldn't. And you had to go find a DVD that it maybe was on. So now that it's so accessible, that's why we went to this model of getting the content out. Right
on. And so, as you're touring around defending this championship, is it basically, are you trying to model it still after the old way of doing it, where you're going around? Are you the heel everywhere, Nick? Usually,
I'm the champion.
The champion.
So it's like, and I don't mean that. I'm not saying that facetiously. I mean like, you're the obstacle, right? Like, like let's face it. If I'm going up, it's an interesting dynamic, because sometimes I can be 100% heel, but then sometimes, depending on the audience or how much of a local sensibility there is towards the challenger, there's more of a respect situation there. You know, obviously when I go back to the UK, there's always a certain level of respect, you know, thrown my way. So it's like we play with that. Again, the rules have changed. Like we try not to sort of paint ourselves into thinking, well, it has to be this way, it has to be like that. You know, to me, the prestige, again, we do little things differently. Like right off the bat, one of the things I tried to bring in and we ushered in was, and we did this at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood first, was I said, I want to do in-ring instructions with the referee, in-ring intros and in-ring instructions, like you see in UFC and see in boxing and everything else. It's just a little detail that just makes everybody go, this is slightly different. Like, this feels different. And that's enough and I'm explaining to guys that I work with sometimes, and you can see them thinking, I know what they're thinking, like, do we have enough? Like, I don't know if we're, you know, I'm like, trust me, by the time we get all this, half the work is done, just in presentation. Yeah. Because right now, so much of the emphasis and everyone internally in their mind is like, I have to do all these moves and I have to make sure that I work hard enough and get, you know, do enough stuff for people to think that I worked. And it's about creating feeling, creating a moment. And if you can get 7 minutes out of the introductions and everything else, but by the time the referee says, you know, any questions from the challenger, any questions from the champion, go back to your comment. People are like, hell yeah, like, let's do this. And it works every time. It works. Like, because they want to see it. Sure. Like it's sure. Like, let's make it as a championship match. Let's present it that way. And then as a result, I get presented a different way because I get presented as a champion. Sure. And that comes down to, like, you know better than anyone, when you walk through the curtain, like, you've got like 3 seconds, maybe, you know, that's your chance. People are going to make, if they've never seen you before, or even if they've never seen you before live in person, that's your chance. Like, they're going to go, they're either going to go, okay, give a shit, or, you know, whatever. Sure. And that, for me, it's like, I strap that around my waist and I've got my jacket. It's like I'm like Superman, you know. It's like a suit of armor to me now. Like, same when I wear the suits. It's like, I know it's like a silly thing, but it's like he'll tell you, like, I flip a switch. Like, when I get dressed, I'm like, it's a different feel. I'm immediately like, all right, let's go to work. And people go like, and that's why now, all that stuff I did in TNA and all the stuff before that, I never had people coming up to me and speaking to me in the way they speak to me now. In that way of like, there's a different level of there's a sort of an admiration. They're like, I really like what you're doing, not just like, hey, good shit last week, you know. Yeah. There's a whole sort of presentation to it, and I dig that. Like, that's what I got into the business to do, you know. Right on.
Like, for us, it's I hate to use the term island of misfit toys, but we're all sort of external from everywhere else. And for us to be able to take something that people said was not valuable 1 year ago. I mean, it got announced a year ago.
Honestly, man, it really wasn't.
Right, Dave. That's what I mean. Like, for us, like, to be able to rebrand something that everyone said was dead. Yeah. I mean, Deadspin wrote, what did he buy? You know what I mean? Like this is a dead brand. Cool. Retro has become cool again. 10 years from now, someone's going to buy Sears and make that cool. It's going to happen.
Maybe you.
If people knew how much money has actually been spent, and I'm talking about, it's not a lot. Like, people assume there's a lot. It's money isn't the thing. It's effort. That's it. Like, the reason that this is back in the prominence that it is effort. And everybody being on the same page and commitment. It's not money.
And it's not why we're doing it. You know what I mean? He could have taken a contract from any place, but he sees the opportunity and the legacy. Look at the list of guys who've held this. He's on that list now, and whoever the next person is, this is almost like joining a fraternity that is very exclusive. Yeah. If somebody would have come to you in 1993 and said you could be the NWA World Champion, you would want to be on that list, and that's the point. And where there's so many titles now. I mean, so many. And now with everybody having replica titles, like this was the title, and it always meant something to the guys who held it. That was our goal.
Right. Don't get me wrong. It was huge for me to win the TNA World title, right? Because there was a moment there where I dare say I probably could have left a couple of years before, and I probably could have got an opportunity at WWE. Who knows? But there was part of me that felt just at that moment, this was like 2013, there was part of me that went, I think if I stick around, I think I can go all the way. And it's like, I'm not a mark for belts, you know what I mean? I'm not like, but there was at that point, I'd put in whatever, like 4 or 4.5 years. And, by the time it'd been 6 years with that company, I was like, I felt like I could do it. I could get, and I wanted to at that point, because now I was like, I want to stick this out now, for my body of work. But having said that, it was a bit, it was tainted. It wasn't a great run with that, but that wasn't up to me. But people weren't coming up to me then and saying, can I see the belt? All the time. I'm talking about guys in the business. Like, hey,
so you didn't even bring the belt in the studio, and I'm like, hey man, where's the belt?
Yeah, because you know how it is. Like, you're a bit weird about it, right? You don't want to come across like you're full of your own shit. But but then when you went,
you mean you don't wear when you go into when you go into the ale house, you don't wear the belt?
Not as much.
Tim Sylvia style.
Hey, so how many times have you defended the title?
I think it's 20 plus.
Right now, 20 something.
Yeah, 20 something. And that was the everything we do, we come up with a concept and let's execute it. So the Aldis Crusade was sort of to fill this spring period. So like he said, I'll defend the title 20 times over 60 plus days. We've done that now, and we're now pivoting to new stories.
Well, and by the way, that came along organically as well. Like those are my existing bookings I had. And then at first we weren't really sure how we were going to handle that, and we were going, well, if you want a title match, you need to talk to them, and they all wanted title matches, of course, right? And because of the work that we had put in, and the effort that Dave had done, especially with with editing and putting these this concept, as soon as that happened, all these bookings I already had, they all hit me up like, oh, can we do an NWA title match? And we started realizing, well, why not? Like, what is the point in trying to make this some sort of premium thing, and that's how. And so now people are going, oh, it's so great that you've brought back this concept of like the traveling champion and stuff, and that sort of happened by accident.
Yeah. So how has there been any difficulties so far in those 20 different defenses? And you know how when you're doing this, and like if I'm looking back at how it was done in NWA before, you go in and you make the guy look great, and you make him look, you leave him better, but you still leave with the title. That can be challenging, man.
It can, but that's my favorite thing to do. Though,
exactly.
Also,
right on.
Like, there's one that will be coming up soon, and I don't know when we're gonna cover it, but I wrestled a kid called Brandon Scott in Baltimore on the show that you guys did the signing at, and that to me was like, I was so proud of that match, because we had him where we got standing ovation. And I beat him clean my finish. Yeah. Right. That's a hard thing to do. You can do all these kind of like, oh well, you do a roll up and I flip it, and he was, I said, just trust me on this. You know what I mean? Like, and we went through all the stuff, and I shined him up like crazy. Right. But I beat him with my finish. By the time it was over, like I felt, I knew about 3 minutes before the finish, I knew we were going to get him, right? And he laid down, I laid down, I just was like, stay down, just stay there, and like they started coming, and he's getting up, he's like trying to make his way to the microphone, and I'm like, wait, 2 minutes later, like the whole place is standing, and he says a little piece, I say a little piece, that was all organic, and then I go, stay here, like I left, I'm done, I'm over, I've got my, my business is transacted here. I left. I said, stay right there. Stay in the middle. Take the floor. By the time I got to the back, the whole place was like chanting his name. So, he didn't win the match, but is he better off now? Absolutely. Like, and that's my job. Like, that's the job of, in my opinion, that's your responsibility. So yeah, like it can be challenging if a guy doesn't get it. That's the difference.
Well, I mean, when Flair traveled around all those territories, man, sometimes he was in there with really good, excellent guys, and sometimes not so much.
Right.
I'm not going to name names, but I mean, I've been there.
It was a challenge he took every time, and we take this as a challenge every day. And when we looked at it, it was like, you've been to enough shows where it's like, oh, this show's too long, or oh, this guy does they do too much. We boiled it down to exactly what we wanted to do, and he takes the challenge every time of who he's going to work with. And he doesn't know. I mean, sometimes he gets there, and we've only really had one where the guy was kind of below the level.
Denver, right.
Yeah, but he took it as a challenge, but he made sure he took care of himself and didn't come down to the guy's level. And we take the same thing. So every interaction I have, I do multiple phone calls, and you know right away when somebody's working, and it's just like, okay, this guy's super carny, and we're not going to go with that.
So far, it's been surprisingly easy sailing.
Yes.
Like, there are a few discussions here and there, but most of the time it just doesn't materialize. Like we're like I'm content enough or comfortable enough to just be like, you know what, maybe we shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Like if it's gonna be if you just feel like someone's just not gonna budge and not or want something that doesn't really fit with doesn't do business for both people, because there's a way to do business for both people always. You know this.
Yeah.
Like, and if a guy doesn't see it, it's just like a waste of time, because it's like, all right, well, good luck with your endeavors.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of talent out there. I mean, there's never been a better time for wrestling, and I say this a lot lately. In my opinion, there's never been a better time to be a wrestling fan. In my opinion, a wrestler.
Of course.
And so that being said, all the talent out there that's not in WWE right now, do you have a wish list of guys you want to defend that against?
Some of them I've had, I guess. Like I wrestled Matt Cross last week, and like I was such a fan of his work.
Yeah.
And for me, it's surprising to a lot of people, because I had this conversation with him. I was like, I think bookers and promoters a lot of the time tend to just shoot their wad. Like they go straight to the dream match. Like I hate the term dream match. Because
it sets it up for failure almost.
Yes, and a dream match it should only exist by the time you've built these two separate entities, and they've circled each other to the point where there is it's not just like, oh well, this guy's really good at high flying and doing all this stuff, so let's put him against the other guy who's really good at doing high flying. Okay, great. So now you've got those two guys in one segment, and now what's the rest?
And anyone can fantasy book that kind of shit.
And so when someone books me in context and said, how do you feel like doing like an NWA title match with Matt Cross? I'm like, absolutely. You know what I mean? Because most people are like, whoa, that's a weird matchup, and I'm like, that's the point. It's a chess match. Like, and I love doing those like cat and mouse matches with those kind of guys. Like that was my whole career. Like I worked with Marty a bunch when I first came up and stuff like that, because there wasn't that many heavyweights in England, or if they were, Brian Dixon's business was that strong at that point that he would have 2 or 3 teams out on the road at once. So he would split us all up, because it was a variety show. So it would be you would do a lot more of that stuff. And a lot of the time now it's super frustrating, because they're like, oh, we'll put you against the other like 6'4", 250-pound guy. And that's fine, it's great, but it's kind of like, I hate the word should. You know what I mean? Like that's and that's something that I think in the business gets thrown around a lot. Like, well, he should. That's what it should be like, and that's what this should be like. No, make something compelling, right? Create content that makes this interesting and makes people feel something, and then you're halfway there. Like that's my whole thing.
That's what we are doing. You know what I mean? Like we are doing this. Like we don't have to. We didn't have to even do this trip, and we're like, we can make something really compelling out of this, and that's the fun of it.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Christy. You were mentioning. The second time I heard you talk about how you make people feel, there's nothing more important than that.
Right.
Nothing.
That's where we start. Everything, it's like, are they going to feel like, okay, or at least feel like we're continuing something? That's our goal every time.
That's my number one goal when I go and do a show and meet and greets that, like, people have, they can order your 8x10 online or take a quick selfie, go and do it. But when you take time and, you make somebody feel a certain way, they never forget that.
It's experience.
Yes.
That's what we're selling, experience and what people felt for this. And I used to go to NWA shows in 1985 with my grandfather. And Dusty Rhodes was nice to my grandfather. Yeah. He never forgot it. And so I take that with me everywhere.
Well, speaking of NWA shows, you were there when Shane Douglas dumped
Yep.
the NWA title
Yep.
to then go back to that same building
I was there the night Shane threw the belt down.
with the 10 Pounds of Gold documentary.
Yeah.
So what was that like?
It was interesting because at that day, I hadn't even spoken to Shane. And so, like, he knew we were coming. He kind of sort of side-eyed the belt, and Tim said hello to Tim. We were ready to do something. He's like, I just don't want to do anything right now. And so it was really interesting, and I don't think I didn't want to go there yet because, you know, I think people were really interested to follow these guys, but we treated it accurately. He did it.
Yeah.
It was a part of history, and we're not going to ignore it, which happens a lot in wrestling. A lot gets ignored.
Man, and I'm going to be honest with you, and I was dear friends with Dennis Carluzzo, and like when you watch that back and you see the look on his face, oh my God! But honestly, that was a pretty smart move.
Yeah.
Everybody
It was brilliant.
Yeah.
It did business. It did great business for him, and it set up a whole chain of events that led to ECW. You know, so we don't look at it as we don't now suddenly go, oh well, now I'm the NWA champion. Now I'm offended by this. You know, it's just
Right, like we're carrying over a grudge that wasn't even mine.
just history. Like and like what we talked about before, when you know the thing that sets us apart. You can't buy history. Anyone can pump a boatload of money into setting up all this crazy stuff and go, we're going to do things differently, but you can't buy history, you know. Well, actually
we did.
But my point is that's the most valuable asset here is the history behind it.
This title has existed in every wrestling promotion. When you go look at it, was the title that's kicked off TNA. It existed in ECW. It was defended in the AWA. It was defended in WWF. I mean, like, it's been everywhere. You can't change that. And so that's why we really love it, and it's been great.
And does that make you more comfortable that other people aren't going to be able to go out and do exactly what you guys are doing, do the traveling championships and kind of bring it all back?
Vince could do this, and he doesn't. And we talk about, it's like we notice little things start to pop through, and we're fine with it because we know what we can do, and we're happy to do it. Because that's the thing. And I always hear people say, oh, I had the idea for Uber before Uber. It's like, no, then do it. You know what I mean? And there were 5 Ubers before Uber. You just have to execute it. And we know what we're executing. We're happy with it.
I don't think any of us really knew what our idea was.
No.
Anyway. I remember that one of the first conversations we had after basically, like, Dave contacted me first, and we were in the middle of moving house, actually, so it was sort of kind of stressful, and he sort of laid out this stuff, and I just said, well, look, I'm available, you know what I mean? I don't really know what I'm doing right now. And he knew, he could sense it, because he was like, where are you at? Like, you know, and I just kind of told him, and he said, well, look, this is what we have in mind, and we got stuff, and I listened and was very, you know, cautious, and sort of, you know, obviously got a pretty healthy skepticism of everything at this point in my career and life, but said, sure, you know, I'm around. As soon as I hung up the phone, Billy called me, and then he spends 20 minutes just, you know, talking about Dick the Bruiser and this and that and how he, you know, his vision of what he thinks, you know. And I got off the phone then and went, okay, I'm in with this guy, like, because I didn't really know, you know, Billy and I had a cup of coffee together in TNA. His first time there on the creative team was like my last set of tapings before my contract expired and I left. So we didn't really have a relationship other than than a couple of discussions about one segment or something, you know. So I didn't have any idea what he was into. I probably had a preconceived idea that he was more going to be into like hipster wrestling and, you know, stuff that didn't really, that I didn't necessarily, you know, fit as the archetypal kind of cookie cutter pro wrestler, which is another what I find hilarious.
Were you pleasantly surprised to find out that wasn't the case?
Absolutely.
Like, he's into, okay, we need a big guy to be like, you know, kind of the old man. Like, I like that.
I wouldn't have got on board. Honestly, I wouldn't have got on board if I had felt like, because, you know, at the end of the day, like, like I learned very quickly at TNA, if your vision for yourself doesn't line up with the person who's making the decisions, like, you're screwed. Correct. Like, there's nothing you can do about that. Yeah. And like, once they've decided, like, you're done, like, you're done. So, it was, you know, and that's what happened with John Gilbert at TNA. And I just went, all right, cool, I'm out then. You know, because you can't fight that.
There's nothing you can do. No. And it's just like pissing against the wind, really.
Yeah.
To do it. And you're absolutely right. I mean, unless you're just trying to get the money. Sure. Like, it's time to go.
Right.
And a lot of guys make that choice. And a lot of guys sit and they let the good years of their career. We were talking about the first year of a character on television is the most important. And once you make that sacrifice for the paycheck, then that's the choice you made. Yep. But the audience will never forget. Like, I mean, most people's first time seeing you was when you beat Razor.
Yep.
But I had seen you in Global, so I brought that installed knowledge for when you won there, and it took it even further. And like if you wouldn't have had that start and would have started another way, it wouldn't have been the same for you. And like that's what's interesting, and that's why this first year has been really important for us to remake. People have an impression of him. They have an impression of me. They have an impression of Billy. And we want to take our time doing this. And everyone's like, well, when are you going to start shows? When are you going to do this? Enjoy what we're doing now, because this is.
Why would you? Honestly, I mean, maybe eventually it evolves into that, but like at this point, are you happy with keeping 10 pounds of gold in the digital space?
Yeah, and you know, we've talked to multiple people, and we were talking about, you know, if you know who Phil DeFranco and Casey Neistat, they both made big deals with big conglomerates that they both now got out of, because being independent is so important. You know what I mean? And like for us, we're good at our own speed because we're all happy, we're all doing well, and we're creating something that nobody out from the outside. We're not letting the money dictate what we're doing.
Are you happy so far with the eyes and ears that have been on the product? We're
way further ahead than I thought we would be, and sometimes we're like, oh, we could be going faster. And I think that's what we take every day, one step at a time, and go, okay. Like today, we interviewed PJ Black, and I'm like, he works well in this setting as not well as in that setting. So we're just finding what everybody's good at and putting them in the right spot for that.
PJ Black, what a talent that is.
Talent.
Yeah.
Such a unique story. It's just such a unique presentation, just a unique person all around. I mean, South African, right? How many other South African wrestlers can you name?
I feel, but not that as good as he was.
The guy, you know, he's a chick magnet. He's totally unique. He's the most free-spirited guy probably I've ever met.
Right, like Daredevil will jump out of an airplane.
Yeah. Every time I see him, hey, check this video out, man. Like, and it's like you know, he's like doing something completely outrageous. I'm like, what is your life? You know, like.
Hey, how about an NWA world title defense against PJ Black in South Africa?
That would be amazing.
Yeah, and in a great story that nobody's told.
Right.
He base jumped a year ago and broke both of his legs and lost a part of his finger. And so he is I mean, like, and sitting there, no one's telling the story. And I'm like, it's worth it for us because as a story, it's great.
And by the way, that's like scratching the surface of like what a compelling story he has. Like once you see this stuff play out on 10 Pounds of Gold with his background and, you know, his family and everything, it's like, it's off to the races with him. I'm 100% confident about that.
So who else's story do you want to tell on 10 Pounds of Gold?
Anybody. Like anybody's got a great story. And that's the thing. We find them one at a time. And we wouldn't want to tell 10 at a time. Like we told the Cabana story, we told the Tommy Dreamer story. So like,
I really love because I'm a big fan of Colt Cabana, so I really enjoyed that latest one with Colt.
Yeah. And like they're all different. I'm trying to make them different, and that's the best part is finding the story and then letting the guy like today we sat and talked for like 45 minutes with PJ. I'll use 8 minutes of it, and there's all this extra stuff, and that's what's the best part is finding these stories and crafting them. And then we're going to expand it. You know, we will do more. You know, we want to do a women's division. But we want our women's division to be different. How? No idea. We'll find it.
And like some of the stuff we've done towards that too. I can't wait for that to come out.
And there's just everybody's got stories, and you know, when you work for a company, you are telling somebody else's story. We want to tell your story in our world. Yeah. It's a little small difference, but. We don't have I think he said it, like, Billy doesn't go, it's mine, and we're going to do everything. Like, he wants to hear from everybody, and everyone gets the thing. Like, even the day you came, everybody there was a part of the conversation of what we should do, and that's the best part, and it's no singular dictatorship.
Yeah. If somebody wants to if somebody wants to bring something to the picnic, bring it, right?
Try it, and that's the point is we all try stuff, and if it doesn't work, either we don't air it, or we say, okay, we learned. Nothing is catastrophic. I mean, you've probably seen plenty of catastrophic gimmicks, but guys still find a way to get over, and if talent's there.
That's right.
So
you know, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Denise.
So you guys were recently in China, but what I wanted to know is, do you guys want to do any title defenses in pro wrestling, in All Japan or Pro Wrestling Noah or maybe Mexico?
Yeah, we've talked to various different things. It's just the situation has to be right and find people's motivation for why they want to do it. Mm-hmm. You know, this belt has been defended in New Japan. I think it was, I don't know about Noah, but All Japan it was. Like, it's the situation. It's not just we want to do it there. The Cabana story was interesting because of Colt's history with the title, and that the China is just an interesting element. Yeah. It has to have multiple layers for it to be something.
I think you're going to find in this year, especially in 2018 and going into next year, that a lot of the preconceived ideas of what people think can happen in terms of promotions and different, you know, working relationships and stuff are not going to be what you think. Like there's way more possibilities than people are realizing at this point, because I think this idea of this is what people can't wrap their head around. Is it's like, what's the promote? What is it? What's the promotion? It's not a promotion. You know, think of it almost. We look at it. We had this conversation the other day. We almost look at it at the moment, and it might change. But right now, we almost look at it kind of like a boxing. When you see a boxing match, it's like so and so promotions and so promotions have got together to present
Yes.
it, right?
Yes.
And that's kind of where we're at, because you're going to see in the next, and it's coming up very, very soon. There's some stuff on deck that's going to make a lot of people go, "What?" Like, and because the idea of the NWA title is going to be defended there, like on that. So what does that mean? And it's nothing. The NWA has sanctioned a NWA title match at this particular event, and that to me is very exciting space to be in.
Yeah, and it's just, one of the prevailing mentalities that in the industry was, they're the competition. We have to destroy them. We have to crush them. No, no, we don't.
Right.
We can work together.
Right. Right.
And it makes it better for everyone.
Look at the WCW invasion. It was like, I loved it as a fan, but now I think back on it, you're like, God, how much better could that have been? But none of the guys came because they all sat at home and took millions of dollars. More power to them. But to been able, why did we even have to wait for that to take place? Why could we, imagine if imagine in '98, if somehow WCW and WWF have been able to negotiate a situation with, let's do some sort of super event. It's Goldberg and Stone Cold Steve Austin in the main event. Well, goosh, everyone's like, what? No, we can't do that because why? Like, aren't we all just trying to make money? Like, and there's an element to that where we're slowly chipping away at that idea, and smart.
The
people
other
are starting to come around
mentality,
to it.
honestly, just has to die out.
Well, it's generational.
And it has to die. Like, a lot of it's just going to take some of the people that have that mentality to,
I think
kick
with
the
the
bucket.
volume,
Hate to say it.
Sure. But with the volume of content that's being put out, that's the other thing that's going to force this issue, I think, because there's only going to be, and I'm not trying to take shots at anyone, but like, all these matchups, and we've seen them a bazillion times already. How many times can you want to, this wrestler versus this wrestler, right? And it's like, because this one versus this one can't happen. Why? It can. It's just you're just not allowing it to happen. And I think that because of how much content is being put out all the time, that's going to force that issue, because people are going to start going like, I want to see that. Like, no, don't make me sit through this again. Like, I want to see that guy against that guy. How do we make that happen? And I think that's where we're going to be within 6 months, maybe a year.
Nice. You don't want to spill. Go ahead,
Oh, no.
Denise.
Well, this past WrestleMania weekend, you were in New Orleans at the Ring of Honor show, and you were looking at Marty Scurll, Dalton Castle.
PI or something?
Well, so are you going to be all in against Marty Scurll?
We
are discussing a number of possibilities for the NWA to be represented at a number of shows.
Nice one, Denise.
Well, and look at it organically.
Sorry about that.
Why are you sorry? Don't be sorry. Sam Roberts asked me too.
Yeah.
Oh, did he? Okay. Really?
Yeah, in advance of us even going. So, but if you look at it organically, Nick's friends with Marty. Yeah. I worked at Ring of Honor. I have a very good relationship with them. And it was simply a phone call. Hey, we'll be in New Orleans. I'd like to cover it because it's his friend's first world title match. It made sense to do it. Why not? You know what I mean? Like it opens a field of possibilities, and why not? Like what? There was no downside.
I would love to see that match. I'm a big fan of Marty's.
Me too.
And I'm a big fan of yours as well.
I pushed for years for TNA to hire him.
Yeah.
But there's a guy
Good thing he did. Good thing they didn't, because he was able to cultivate his own deal, man.
Everything
and
happens for a
it is on point, man. Everything about his game is on point.
To me, he's the best character in the business right now. And honestly, if I look at anyone from a sort of envious point of view, like his position, he's bulletproof.
Yeah.
He can go anywhere he wants. He's Roddy Piper. Like he doesn't need a title, doesn't need a specific, matchup or feud or anything. He's just like, people want to see that.
Yeah.
He's an attraction.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the best way you want to be.
And even if no one knew who he was before they seen him, like just the way he does things, like, yeah.
Well, how the audience
reacts
reacts.
And it's, by the way, we've been wrestling the same amount of time, so he's like going on like 13, 14 years. This is not, this didn't just happen overnight. Like, this is a culmination of experience and, being knocked back and, going back to the drawing board and being creative and thinking of these things. It's not, his success is no accident.
Yeah, it's not. Big fan of Marty's.
Well, were you in the Butling camps with Marty?
Yeah.
What did you guys learn there?
Well, it's reps. My first year I went full time in wrestling at 18. So I started. I think I just turned 17 when I went trained with Ricky Knight, Paige's dad.
Yeah.
And Mum, Julia. I better mention her, otherwise she'll kick my ass next time I see her. And they had shows, and they would run these, but they had their own camp circuit, and those shows are very. A lot of the time they just want an hour. So, but by the time they fill the spots with their own family, which of course they're going to do because it's a business, you know, there's not that many spots available, right? So, you would get on a few things. Like my first show for them was a Battle Royal, and like Jake the Snake was on that show, so it was a huge deal for me, and stuff like that. But I started going to another school down south, which is where I met Marty, and I started picking him up and giving him a ride every time. And that's how we became friends, because he needed a ride, and we would drive 3 hours, every Sunday to go train there, and 3 hours back, and then Doug was the first guy, Doug Williams, who came in and helped as a guest trainer from time to time, and he was the one who plucked me out and started saying to a few promotions, like, put me in with this guy, not just book him, like book him with me, and I'll show you what we get out of him. Like my second or third ever singles match was with Doug, 2 out of 3 falls, like rounds, so I mean, I was able to get that very quickly, and then because I had a look, because I had this, I didn't, it's funny you mentioned like bodybuilding, it's always funny when people describe me as that, because I think really I didn't compete or anything,
you didn't?
No. Oh, hell no. No, I ain't got the legs for that. But I got the...
But you were doing it, right?
Sure. But I think anyone who lifts weights to change their physique is bodybuilding. Like, that's what it is, right?
Yeah, but it's easy when you hear that to think competitive.
I had that sort of bodybuilder look, especially at the time in the UK, there wasn't that many body guys, so that helped me get my foot in the door. That's why I laugh when I hear this, that sort of negative connotation towards it, because I was like, that got me booked. Dixon was like, I called him on the phone, because even then it wasn't, he didn't email or anything. Like, he was super behind the times, he still is.
Yes.
So I had to call him on the phone. He's like, hi, I'm just trying to get, I literally had to call and say, I'm looking for work. And he was just like, oh, do you look good? And I was like, he's like, how tall are you? I told him 6'4". And he's like, well, do you look good? I said, yeah, I think so. And he's like, great, we'll start on Tuesday, 6 days a week. Like, that was it, full-time wrestler. He gave me one run of 6 days, sorry. And it was basically just like almost like the old territory days, where it was like, he goes, okay, you booked Tuesday to Sunday, okay, packed for 6 days, okay. Did the 6 days. At the end, he said, right, you start again Tuesday. You can go full time if you want.
But they were all in England, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you could go. You could drive home every night.
Well, you could. But with the Butlin circuit, there was 3 parks, and each one had their own like entertainment venue. So you would do like Skegness on a Tuesday, then drive to Bognor, do Bognor on Wednesday, then Minehead. And then there would either be like a down day where sometimes there would be like a 4th camp, or you would do that one again, because that would be the changeover day where those guests would leave and new guests would come in. So you'd wrestle the same place twice, even though it was a completely different audience. Yeah. And then you would go back, and so you would finish in the same place you started. So I had Mondays off. So Mondays to basically do laundry and start again.
I used to get the biggest kick out when I would go over to England, and they go, we got a long drive today. It's about as long a drive. Yeah, 4 hours. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Oh my God. Like that's the same size as the Florida territory was, and the big thing about the Florida territory back in the day was we get to be home every night.
Yeah.
It's just
even
weird.
when I go back now, like I'll go home and I'll take a bunch of shows, and even though I'll go to my parents, my mum will be like, oh, where are you? And I've got this show here, and then I've got this show in Scotland. How are you gonna? It's like 7 hours, like it's the 7 hour drive. Like it's like when we came back from China. God, it was just a brutal travel, like 14, it's like 1 hour, like the flight from Wenzhou to Shanghai was like only an hour and a bit, but like the layover in Shanghai was 7 hours, then a 14-hour flight to New York. I got to New York and it was like, flight was delayed, cancelled. I had to get home to be home for my son. So I went, all right, I'm getting a rental car. I'd already been traveling 27 hours or something at that point, and I just went, all right, screw this, like I'm getting a rental car. I drove 5 hours, but again, like to some people, it's like, that's nuts, I was like, well, it's either that or sit around and wait for another flight. Like I can drive, I don't care, and it's just part of the job at this point, right?
For sure. Hey, something you just said made me think of this, and I wanted to ask you before we end this. It's a big deal to me. You said you had to get home to be with your son, and how is it being a parent when both parents are in the professional wrestling industry?
It's a challenge, and it's like a Rubik's cube, You're constantly figuring out ways. And there are times like this week was a bit tricky because typically we're not doing, she's working Mondays. So typically it's wherever I am on a Sunday, I try to make it where I can drive, and like 3 or 4 weeks consistently, I was driving home and getting home at like 5 a.m. and then up at 6:30 to get him ready to take him to pre-K. That's a choice you make. This week's a little bit different because Cauliflower Alley came up and I had to show, this show for Hollywood. So between family support and then through other means, a nanny or whatever, and it's being flexible and just being pragmatic with it.
Sure.
It's just one of those things.
It's incredibly difficult.
He's not starved for attention or love. Like that's 100%. I don't want people to think that we're never home. Like it's most of the time
Sure.
one of us
I just
is.
understand the challenge of just one person being in our industry.
Sure. It's the harder part is us having time for each other more so much
Okay.
because you prioritize him first, and then after that anything else is gravy.
And what's going to happen in a few years when he says, Mom, Dad, I want to start training as a wrestler?
If he wants to do that, he could do that. And I wouldn't force the issue one way or the other because it's either going to happen or it's not. Right?
And this isn't the wrestling industry 1990s and before. We're talking about an industry like I was talking to Rikishi last week about this, like how he's comfortable with his kids being in the industry.
Well, and why wouldn't you be with his family history if they've had a great deal of success?
And just the landscape, just the atmosphere, the culture is a lot different now. It's a lot healthier of a culture, our industry now.
And in reality, who's more qualified to get into it than someone who has the access to the people that he has access to, right? It's no accident that a lot of second generation, third generation guys do so well because it's first of all it's in their DNA, but it's also because they're able to be educated on all this stuff. Imagine if you had access to Dusty Rhodes or guys like that when you were a kid, when you were making all these stupid mistakes that we all made, right? Where you think you know what you're doing and you don't know what you're doing at all. But instead, it's like those guys you can tell like they've been smartened up.
Man, and don't we think we know what we're doing? Man,
I still don't know. I still don't know what I'm doing, but I thought I did 10 years ago.
Yeah. And it keeps on working that way until the end.
Mm-hmm.
It's changing.
Yeah. So hey, what do you have going on coming up that you guys want to talk about before we head out?
What's next for me? Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago. He's got a title defense.
And we're going to be at Cauliflower Alley, so
Cauliflower,
we'll be there because it was. I felt like it was important if we're going to continue what we've been doing as far as restoring the history of and the legacy of the NWA. Who knows how we'll be received or how any of that's going to go. But to me, it was important that we showed up.
Yeah.
And then after that, my next defense is in Chicago, right, against Sam Adonis, who's Corey Graves' brother. He's big Rudo in Mexico. Yeah. I'm looking forward to wrestling him a great deal, And
we just we'll back here with hopefully PJ Black.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And we're looking at various different stuff. That's the best part. We'll fit and the phone will ring and hey, I got this thing. We'll try. We're doing
undisclosed.
Yeah, undisclosed. Denise Salcedo but we're part of a convention. I think you might be on it in September in the UK.
Oh, the big podcast convention
so
thing.
We're going to do a 30-minute show. You know what I mean over there, and stuff comes up all the time, and that's the best part. We're not locked into we got to fill 2 hours of TV. Like we make it work. And every opportunity is a new one, and we're just like, all right. Like going to China, I'm like, okay, that's a lot of travel for this, but it's the experience and the story. The belt had never been there. That. Think about that. All the champions, it never went to China.
Do you feel like there's not as much pressure now, because it's not, if long as you just keep moving forward, I think it will fall into place. Like, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna pull something out of our ass this time?
The basis of all of this was last year, Billy and I went on the road for 30 days. And I challenged myself. It's like, we'll make a documentary every day. I had no idea I was going to do it. So we did 30 documentaries in 30 days. So I was shooting and editing at the same time and putting a video out. And we just, every day you just find it. You don't stress about it. You just do it. And that's how we prepared this. Like, I have no idea we're going to get a cauliflower. No idea. Yeah. But I know the stories, right? Because actually a year ago tomorrow, it was announced that Billy was intending to buy the brand. So now we're walking in a year later. We have no idea we're going to be received. None. And that's the most interesting part, and we've never been. And we're excited that you're going to be there, and Sean and everybody, because now it's like this world colliding. And I don't think people really know what it is. I think it's sort of closed club, and I think we're going to show it. and see what it is, and his reaction and everyone's reaction to him.
And I think it should be shown because I think cauliflower is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
And Christy reported on a story earlier about them helping Brickhouse Brown.
Yeah.
And
they've done a lot of good stuff in that
Yeah.
respect. And again, like to me, if we're gonna be all in, on the NWA and restoring that tradition and legacy, then I think we should have a presence there. Whether how it works out is one thing, but it's like we have the courage to show up.
Yeah. So, hey, man, thank you guys both so much for coming.
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Taking your
Always a
time
pleasure,
to
man.
come in here today,
fun.
spending your time with us.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having us. Always a
And
pleasure.
we're just going to wrap this up real quick. Hit everything real quick.
So when this
rigmarole.
airs, Sean and everyone will be at the Cauliflower Alley in Las Vegas. Go check out the Cauliflower Alley Club. Check that out. Cinco de Mayo, Icons of Wrestling Convention in Feasterville,
Yes.
Pennsylvania. Tickets available at collectorfest.com. Jeff Jarrett, Jake Roberts, and a bunch of other people will be there along with X-Pac.
What happened to TaintedParadiseProductions.com?
There you go.
I think that's how. All right. Anyways,
Guys, where can people see the show, follow you?
Everything on social is at NWA, and we're around. You'll just search Nick Aldis and NWA, and you'll
If you
find
haven't seen the 10 Pounds of Gold,
please,
we deeply encourage you to
I
do
can't
that.
recommend it enough.
youtube.com/NWA.
Can't recommend it enough. Such great work you're doing.
Thank
Dave.
you.
Thank you.
So, all right, everyone. See you all next week right here on Westwood One, Jericho Network, and AfterBuzz TV.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, Sean Waltman, producers Mark B. Donica, Jimbo Frank, Christy Olson, and the entire X-Pac 12360 staff, we would like to thank you for tuning in. Like us on Facebook, rate and comment on iTunes and YouTube. Follow X-Pac on Twitter at TheRealXpac and email us at xpac12360show@gmail.com.